Hi everyone! At Ethical Consumer, we get asked a lot about boycotts, especially boycotts of countries because of their human rights abuses. In this video, we're going to try and answer a couple of questions that come up a lot. Can you really boycott a whole country like China, Israel, Russia, or Myanmar? And if you can, should you? Stay tuned to find out, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. So, can you boycott a whole country? The obvious answer is yes, but as you might have gathered from our previous videos, it's never quite that simple. We're going to look at some example countries to hear their arguments. First off, China. The country is under a boycott call from the Tibetan Youth Congress, a group campaigning to free Tibet from Chinese rule and the human rights abuses committed there. They believe consumers have a responsibility to make China accountable for its actions in Tibet and the wider region. They point out that there are alternatives to most products manufactured in China, so it's certainly possible to boycott them. The campaigners at Tibetan Youth Congress say that companies should also be boycotting China and buying their raw materials and component parts from elsewhere. This, they say, is also possible and point to the case of India, where exports from China declined 13% in 2020, following tensions between the two countries. Even if it's possible to boycott a country, should you? It might seem pretty clear-cut in the case of China, right? When you consider the treatment of people in Tibet, Hong Kong, and the Uyghur region. As we said, it's never quite that simple. Some campaigners working on China-related human and workers' rights issues take a different approach. Anti-Slavery International argues that boycotts can actually make the situation regarding poor working conditions and low wages even worse. For example, a whole country boycott might just incentivize a company to move their custom abroad to a country like Sri Lanka, where the average factory wage is just 50 cents an hour, much less than in China. Some also say that a whole country boycott isn't a useful bargaining tool, as China is unlikely to engage with a boycott. In some cases, more targeted boycotts of institutions connected to the oppressive regime could be more appropriate. These could be of individual companies, cultural, educational, or even sporting bodies. Companies are often a good target. While most are unlikely to exit China, they're often open to targeted demands, and these can have a real impact. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget, subscribe now to stay up to date with our channel. The debate doesn't end there. Whole country boycotts are actually pretty rare. Our boycott list currently contains just 4 country boycotts that have been called by campaign groups. These are China, Turkey, Russia, and Israel. Previously, Japan, Myanmar, and South Africa have appeared on the list. Perhaps the most famous country boycott was that of apartheid South Africa between 1959 and 1993. All international companies doing business in the country were targeted by campaigners, as they were all considered to be complicit in the ongoing institutionalized racism. The economic impact of the boycott was massive. It galvanized anti-apartheid campaigns around the world, helping heap pressure on those doing business and engaging with the racist regime until it fell. For example, after the US Congress passed the Comprehensive Anti-Apartheid Act in 1986, 2/3 of the US companies had left South Africa within 5 years. Another source estimates that sanctions caused South Africa's GDP to be 20 to 30% lower than it otherwise would have been. It also helped show practical solidarity with the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. Taking a leaf out of this successful campaign is the BDS movement: boycott, divestment, and sanctions. Their ultimate aim is an end to Israeli settler colonialism and for a free Palestine state. They call for a boycott of Israel's entire regime of oppression against Palestinians, including all Israeli companies and institutions that are involved in violating international law. One argument against whole country boycotts in this context is often that of collective punishment. Whole country boycotts can inflict damage on entire populations, and it's often those in positions of wealth and power who are least affected. The BDS movement believes that oppressed communities have the right to choose which tactics are used to resist oppression, as long as they comply with international law, and that, just like the boycott of apartheid South Africa, any economic damage that people may face is a small price to pay in return for freedom, justice, and equality. Another boycott that has been hotly debated recently is that of Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. Many argue the impacts of companies exiting Russia on ordinary people have not been fully considered. For example, measures such as Visa and MasterCard leaving the country cut off everyone's credit lines, even Russians who are critical of the regime, leaving them without access to funds. But perhaps this is a small price to pay considering the suffering of Ukrainian people following Russia's full-scale invasion. It's complex, isn't it? Then we have Myanmar. As a general rule, if people inside a country are calling for a boycott of it for whatever reason, then you're on pretty safe ground. But what if there's a split among people who might normally agree? This is what's happened in Myanmar. In the past, progressive groups agreed that the international boycott was a good thing to try and bring down the military regime. Now they aren't so sure. For example, Burma Campaign UK and their allies are calling for a targeted boycott campaign aimed at companies with links to the Burma-Myanmar military. Meanwhile, the Boycott Myanmar campaign and its affiliated organizations call for a more blanket boycott that includes companies, but also tourism, and have a more general call-out to foreign investors. Similar aims, slightly different tactics. And the reasons for some people calling the country Burma and others calling it Myanmar could be the subject of a whole other video. So there we have it. Complicated, isn't it? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Are you boycotting a country? Do you think others should be? We'll be looking deeper into some of these issues in future videos, so we'd love to hear your comments. And don't forget, subscribe to our channel, like this video, and turn on notifications to stay up to date.